Hello friends! Welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. Welcome to Morning Tea with CJ. The show where I browse the web, read and talk about the latest JavaScript news, and then maybe implement something from the latest JavaScript news. I'm running kind of late today. For whatever reason, my internet was having issues. I had to restart my streaming software several times, but we're here. It's happening. If you're watching live, please throw a message in the chat. Let me know what you're drinking, if you're drinking some tea or coffee or whatever you're drinking out there. And yeah, let's get right into it. So I'm going to start with r/JavaScript. First link, Grasshopper is an app for learning JavaScript through mini games. Ooh, very cool. Let's check it out. Google's in-house incubator, Area 120, just released an app called Grasshopper, which teaches you how to code JavaScript through a series of fun mini games. Let's look at it. It's grasshopper.codes. Welcome to Grasshopper, the coding app for beginners. The best way to start your coding adventure. Learn with fun, quick lessons on your phone that teach you to write real JavaScript. Visual puzzles develop your problem-solving skills and solidify coding concepts. Cool. Can we see a demo? The goal, according to the coders who worked on the app, is to make coding feel fun and approachable as it is increasingly becoming a necessary skill. Hey, Emmy, welcome to the chat. Lemon ginger green tea. That sounds really good. And Matthew, welcome to the chat. Drinking coffee. Yeah, I want to see an example. I guess maybe if we see it on the Play Store, we can probably see more screenshots. Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay. Let's look it up on YouTube real quick. Grasshopper coding app. These are not official videos, but let's see. I'm gonna mute that. Okay, so they're launching the app. There's apparently a level on variables. Your goal is to create something that looks like this. Okay. Here is your solution so far. So they want you to draw some boxes. But apparently the boxes are too short. I don't know. This isn't the best video. This seems interesting. I have an Android phone. I think I might install it and try it out. It's pretty cool. All right, pretty cool. And a shout out from Joe. He said he really liked the higher order functions instructional video. I just uploaded that last night at like 2 a.m. I had a stroke of inspiration and decided to record it. But you can check that out. It's a pretty short video on array map. And the first 5 minutes are just like, what is map? And then there's another like 5 minutes of me solving several different problems with map. I made some nice, cool little slides, nice little images, definitions, nice looking code. Check it out. Okay, I have been forgetting to put the links on my GitHub repo. I do have a GitHub repo where I post the links for each episode, and I keep forgetting, so I am going to not forget this time and do it in real time while we are watching the episode. And I need to go back and put the links for the past 2 episodes up on GitHub too. Cool. All right, moving on to the next one. React voted JavaScript framework that most developers regard as essential to them. jQuery is number 3. Ooh. This links to like the middle of a survey. Let's see what the survey actually is. This is the front-end tooling survey 2018. Last time on, I guess this was Sunday, I found an article that was the state of JavaScript, and they had a lot of questions like this, but let's see Well, I want to go to that specific section. Scroll. Cool. Which JavaScript library or framework would you regard as essential to you on the majority of your projects? And React comes in at 28%. But check this out. Vue.js is number 3 at 10.3%. So that's pretty awesome. Compared to 7% in 2016. And jQuery has gone down 12% since 2016. This is my break timer. Let's take a quick break. Another mention in the chat. Emmy says she watched that video just a bit ago, helped her to understand. And Joe says he hopes that I continue those episodes. I think I plan to. I'd like to do similar videos for like filter and reduce. Actually, before I do those, I actually want to do one just on fat arrow functions. I realized how much I use fat arrow functions and how many different ways there are to use fat arrow functions. So it'd be good to just have a video breaking down like what are all the different ways to use a fat arrow, what's the difference between a function, that kind of thing. But yes, I will continue, absolutely. But that's really cool. Vue.js, higher than Angular 2 on the list, 2+, which is awesome to see. But React is at the top. It'll probably never go away, but I'm a Vue fan. Glad to see it up at the top there. So, the title this person posted was React voted JS framework that most developers regard as essential to them. I'm going to change the title here to say Vue.js voted third JS framework, third most essential JS framework. Because there's a lot in that article, and if they're going to give it a title, I'm going to give it my own title. There we go. Let's look at the comments on Reddit just real quick. Let's close these. Mandatory jQuery is a library, not a framework. Yeah, of course. But the question is which library or framework. So they did clarify. Yeah, and even this person is saying most surprising is like Vue it's on the up and up. Like in the past year, I think in 2017 it was the most starred repo on GitHub, but to already see that it's that high on the list is crazy. Cool. Optional chaining proposal. Okay, cool. So I come from a C# background. That was my very first language that I learned, and they introduced it, I think maybe in C# 6 or C# 7, this idea of optional chaining. And right now there's a proposal to introduce it into JavaScript. Let's see what it looks like because it's really, really cool. Okay, so when you're writing JavaScript, a lot of times you might say something like, okay, if this property exists, I know that it's an object, so let's make sure that that exists. And then we're going to grab a nested property inside of that object. So this says var street equals user.address and user.address.street. So it will only be true if there is an address and if street has a property. So you find yourself doing this a lot in JavaScript. You're like checking to make sure something exists so you can make sure something deeper inside of it exists. Or like in this case, like if you're doing DOM manipulation, so you try to select the element and then you'll say, okay, if it was selected, meaning it was actually on the page, then let's grab the value. Otherwise, set it to undefined. The optional chaining operator makes this really, really easy. It introduces this thing with like a question mark. So you can basically say user.addressed, and if that exists, use the street grab the street property from there. Or my form query selector, and if that exists, grab the value property from it. So this can really clean up some JavaScript code. And I believe it can be deeply nested too. So you can have like property name question mark dot property name question mark dot property name question mark, and you can go all the way down. Yeah. And so they mentioned like C# has this, Swift has this. And if you're not familiar with what you're looking at, this is a proposal for ECMAScript. So And actually, let's look up TC39 proposals. This one. So every year, any proposals that have made it into stage 3 are introduced into the JavaScript language. So in ES 2015, they introduced a bunch of stuff, but every year after that, they're only introducing the latest things that are available. So ES 2016, I think, had maybe 3 new features. 2017 had a few more features, but this page shows you all the possible things that might be introduced into the language and describes what they are, and then people can comment on them, and eventually, if it makes it to stage 3, it will actually get introduced into the language. So let's see where optional catch binding. Optional chaining is it's a stage 1 proposal. So that means we probably won't see it for a while, because to get into these other stages, it has to be introduced and implemented in at least a few browsers first. So that's cool. But optional chaining is really cool. It will clean up your code, and I hope that it gets introduced into the language. Oh. Cool. Let's read the comments on Reddit. Well, I got downvoted last time, so I'll take it again. Why repost this if you're nog adding a comment to at least start a conversation? Okay. I mean, it started a conversation for me because I know what it is and I'm excited about it. Stern says, wasn't this rejected some time ago, or can they keep trying to get it into the standard? Not fully rejected, but I think it was agreed that they should try for a better syntax before allowing it to go past stage 1. Interesting. The syntax works in C# and it's officially in the language. Object ? Thing is so ugly. Great feature though. I'd use it all the time. I don't think it's ugly. I think it makes sense because it's like ? Does that thing exist? If it exists, keep going down. If it doesn't, undefined. Cool. Cool. All right, one more link here, and then we'll move on to r/webdev. Real-time human pose estimation in the browser with tensorflow.js. Cool. So TensorFlow is a neural network library that you can use inside of the browser, I believe. Let's check it out, though. Okay, real-time human pose estimation in the browser with TensorFlow.js. In collaboration with Google Creative Lab, I'm excited to announce the release of TensorFlow.js version of PoseNet, a machine learning model which allows for real-time human pose estimation in the browser. Try a live demo here. It's pretty sweet. So I guess it's looking at the webcam and then tracking any bodies that it sees, like arms, legs. Let's try the real demo here. Is it going to ask to use my camera? You're actually going to see my real green screen, probably. It's not loading. No errors in the console. Try again. Maybe it only works in certain browsers? I don't know. That didn't seem to work. So what is pose estimation anyway? Pose estimation refers to a computer vision technique that detects human figures in images and videos so that one could determine, for example, where someone's elbow shows up in an image. To be clear, this technology is not recognizing who is in the image. There is no personal identifiable information associated with the pose detection. The algorithm is simply estimating where the key body joints are. If you've ever seen like how a Microsoft Kinect works, it seems to be in a similar way. Like it knows where the arms and the legs and the body are so that it can react to that. So it's pretty sweet. And all of this is done inside of the browser. Look at that. You're just loading a script tag and then making stuff happen. I wish the demo worked. It would be cool to demo. This is cool. This is very cool. If you watch or if you've heard of Coding Train, this guy has been doing tons of videos recently on like introduction to TensorFlow and what it is and how to use it. So check that out. I've watched a few of his episodes. They're really great. Cool. And I guess the previous article I was looking at, there's a comment in the chat. Wemo says, I personally think that if there is a type error while object chaining, JavaScript should just return undefined instead of throwing an error. Like maybe, what if that was like an optional thing that you could turn on? Like right now in JavaScript, you can add sample.js. Yes. You can add use strict, and that throws errors for things that didn't used to throw errors. So what if there was like maybe it was added into use strict? I don't know. It seems like it's the opposite because then it doesn't throw errors. But I think it throws errors for a reason. Like, I mean, that's just how the language is defined. Like if you try to access a nested property on something, then you get an uncaught reference error. But I think it would be interesting. Like, what if they just disabled that and made it so that, like, if anything in it is undefined, the resulting value is undefined? That would be cool. I'm going to try to click this link one more time. Really curious why it isn't working. Okay. Get ready to see my green screen. So there's that. Go back up. I guess I don't think my camera's it's wide enough. I'm not really far enough away. Single pose. I guess multi-pose would detect multiple people in the image. Yeah, don't show the video. Show the skeleton. Waving hands. That's pretty cool. You could rate like a really cool game in the browser where it uses the webcam and then maybe like you're actually like interacting with the game itself by like swiping at things. I don't know, that would be cool. Cool. This is very cool. Highly recommended. Let's link to it. I think it'd be fun to do some episode on TensorFlow or machine learning or like webcam processing in the future. That would be really cool. Okay. Let's move on to r/webdev. First link, DigitalOcean load balancers now support Let's Encrypt certificates. If you're not familiar with Let's Encrypt, they offer free SSL certificates for your servers, so you can have free SSL. Let's see. In February of 2017, we launched load balancers, our highly available and managed load balancing service. Thousands of users rely on them to distribute traffic across web and application servers. Today, we're announcing significant upgrades to load balancers, including Let's Encrypt integration and HTTP2 support. Cool. I've never used a DigitalOcean load balancer, but I have used a load balancer on AWS. Essentially, it allows you to direct traffic to different servers depending on the load of a given server. Cool. It looks like they have a nice little GUI where you can put in your domain and generate a certificate. That's awesome. I like it. I used DigitalOcean really just to try it out. They have the droplets for $5. A droplet is basically like a small Linux server. I think it might be running in a container or a virtual machine. I'm not sure which one. But you can spin it up. You get terminal access. You can start services on it, that kind of thing. For things like that, I mainly use AWS because I believe the micro tier is like I think maybe $2 or $3 a month to run compared to the droplet. How to make a DApp of a pet shop using Solidity and Truffle. What's a DApp? Or did they misspell app? Okay. They didn't misspell it. Let's figure out what DApp. Okay, there it is. Distributed application. Okay. A distributed application builds on the blockchain base, so it attracts attention as an application that does not concentrate on specific administrators. Okay. So let's actually look at the mechanism of DApp by making a simple DApp. So I guess they're using Ethereum smart contracts to create like a distributed application. Here, along with the flow of Truffle's tutorial Ethereum Pet Shop, I will actually create distributed applications for pet shops on the web. This is my break timer. Let's take a quick stretch. Using the development framework of Truffle, I will write a smart contract in a language called Solidity. Cool. The complete drawing is as follows. If you press the adopt of the pet you want to keep, MetaMask will start up, check the displayed amount and fee, create a transaction, and pay with Ethereum. So you're essentially like, when you click this button, it's a binding contract to adopt that specific pet. Cool. So they create a Truffle project. First, they're installing Node on their machine. Then they're installing the Truffle command globally. And then Truffle looks like it has a command line tool to generate an app. Truffle unbox. Then you create a smart contract. I have not messed around with smart contracts. I haven't created my own. Seems pretty interesting. Just haven't done it. So it's creating a contract with an adopters property and then a function that allows you to adopt the pet. Cool. Truffle develop will compile it. Truffle develop and then pass in compile. That will compile it. Super interesting. It's basically a tutorial for setting up an app with like a Solidity contract and Truffle. Cool. I'll link to it. How to make a DApp. That is honestly the first time I've heard that term. A distributed app is what it stands for. Let's see the comments on Reddit. How to make a DApp of a pet shop using Solidity and Truffle. Sigh. Guess the time has arrived where I've completely lost track of current trends in web development. Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of Truffle. I have heard of Solidity. I think I've heard of Solidity, or was it Salinity? I don't know. And this guy, you're not alone. Here I am using modern frameworks for work and testing cutting-edge ones on small personal projects, yet I know none of these names. It's because it's all about blockchain and distributed apps. The next web, you know? Cool. Pretty cool to see Truffle and Solidity mentioned on this subreddit. Usually only see them mentioned over on r/Ethereum development. I may have finally transformed into a grumpy old programmer because for the life of me, I cannot see the value for end users in any of this. I'm not going to try to justify it, but I mean, I think one of the values to end users is that the contracts themselves are encoded in the code itself. So like, you can't fake it. Once you click that adopt button, money is immediately deducted from your Ethereum wallet, and ownership is immediately transferred of that pet into your name. So like, instead of having to have some sort of middleman or exchanging like actual money, it's a software contract that makes sure that the thing that they're saying is going to happen will actually happen. I don't know. Cool. Let's keep moving. What's new in Angular? So Google I/O is happening right now, I believe. It might be over, but this is Google's yearly developer conference that happens, and they announced a lot of interesting stuff. But this one, apparently, we're not gonna watch the whole thing. But this is what is new in Angular. Absolutely loved Angular. I think it's a good sentiment. Loved, because I no longer loved it. It was cool back in the day, but they introduced so many complexities. NG girls, cool. I don't know if I'm going to be able to deduce what is actually new just by skimming the video and not listening to the audio. You can add a package. Cool. You can bring in, oh, this might be talking about tree shaking, because it's saying like an unused function doesn't get called, so maybe they introduced tree shaking. Cool. I think there is no way that I can deduce all the new stuff just by skimming through the video, but I'll link to it so you can check it out if you are interested in Angular. What's new in Angular? If you haven't seen the Google I/O keynote, check it out. I was just thinking of there's like a new thing that they're working on with Google Assistant, where the Google Assistant will actually call places to make appointments for you. And the demo they played was just like eerie sounding, because the robot on the phone sounded like a human. It was saying like and and it like was understanding what the other person was saying. It was crazy. How long have I been streaming? I've been streaming for 31 minutes. I'll click a few more links, and then I want to find something to try and implement today. Let's see. Let's click this link, how to make your mark as a UI developer. TLDR, it's difficult to stand out among your peers and make your mark as a developer today. By learning the fundamentals of UX and applying them throughout your career, you will add tangible value to the products you work on. This is how I tripled my salary in less than 5 years, and you can too. Cool. In my 11-year career, I've been fortunate enough to experience working for both scrappy startups and Fortune 500 companies. Throughout this, I witnessed firsthand how difficult it is for a developer to stand out among his or her peers. Well, I mean, I have not found that it's difficult. You just be awesome, and you'll stand out. I don't know. That's a little pretentious. I'm sorry. Challenging the status quo, but I think I see where they're going, though. Like, okay, you can write code, great, but can you build an app that users actually want to use and that has a pleasant user experience? Because that is what will actually stand out amongst all the other apps that are just horrible to use. The majority of the apps out there in the world have horrible UX, they're hard to use, and it just sucks. Like, why does everything have to suck so bad? It doesn't have to suck so bad. So they're saying learn the fundamentals of UX, begin work on a new feature with a personal UX review. Before starting development, share feedback to product and design, and collaborate with product and design to improve the UX of the future. So really, it's just all about like actually, even though you write apps, you write code, gain an actual interest in user experience, and you will stand out as a developer. Cool. I wonder if they link to any resources for learning UX. Yeah, the difference between UI and UX design is often misunderstood. Yeah, UI is just the user interface. It's what the user sees. UX is the user experience. It's how they actually use the app. What steps do they have to take to get a specific thing done? How many buttons do they have to click to get what they want done? That kind of thing. And it's less tangible than just the UI. You have to actually watch a user use your app to really know like what is the user experience of your app. Cool. I skimmed that pretty hard, but I think it's worth a read. How to make your mark as a UI developer. There you go. See if there's any other interesting links. This is just a funny title. How could one make a website that attracts lots of spam bots? Why would you want to do that? We clicked on the front-end tooling survey. You can now identify and fix insecure node dependencies with npm audit. Ooh, maybe that'll be what I demo at the end of this. We'll come back to it. All right, now on to r/programming. Herb Stutter at Build 2018, how to adopt modern C++ 17 into your C++ code. Now, I don't write C++ code, but if you do, check that out. A visualization of Prim's minimal spanning tree algorithm. Let's take a look. Prim's minimum spanning tree. Find a tree that contains all points while minimizing the sum of edges weighted according to Euclidean distance. So Prim's algorithm is, for all points, initialize distance, representing the shortest distance from the current tree, as infinity. Select one point arbitrarily and set its distance as 0. Repeat until all vertices in the tree. Find the point with the least distance from the tree and add it to the tree. For this added point, update the distance for all neighbors, if shorter. Click to begin. Okay, we can see a bunch of dots on the screen. Click on any point to initialize the tree. So whatever point I click on, the tree will be initialized there. I'm going to click this one. And essentially from that point, it's drawing a line out to essentially a node that's the shortest distance from the previous node. And I think the idea of this minimum spanning tree is given all of these nodes that are like randomly on the page here, the tree that it's generating will be the minimum amount of distance between nodes. And I think the minimum number of possible nodes to give that. What's happening? Okay, what happens if I pause it? Oh, I just click continue. Okay. Cool, I like it. Let's look at the comments. I'm not equipped to understand this. It connects the closest point to the current tree. Number on point is distance from the tree from that point. So whatever point we started at, it's creating a tree, and then whatever point is closest from that point is what gets connected, and it just keeps going until all the points are connected. Cool. That's very cool. Let's link to it. All right, let's click 2 more links, and then we'll try out this npm audit thing. This next one, multiple OS vendors release security patches after misinterpreting Intel docs. Ooh. This is from yesterday. Cool. Almost all major operating system vendors, so think Apple, Mac, Microsoft Windows, potentially Linux of some sort, released security patches yesterday after a researcher discovered that some operating system makers have misinterpreted an Intel CPU debug feature and left their systems open to attacks. So in the Intel documentation that they're following because they have to write code that runs on Intel processors, they misinterpreted the documentation and introduced a bug. So the vulnerability is in how the OS vendors implemented a hardware debug mechanism for Intel x86 and 64 architectures, and more specifically, the MOV SS and POP SS instructions. Cool. If I think back to my computer science days, like a 16-bit processor is called a 16-bit processor, for one, because it can store 16-bit values, but also it has 16 different types of instructions. So there's move, add, subtract, and with those 16 instructions, you can essentially do anything on that 16-bit computer. I'm not as quite as sure with like a 32-bit processor or a 64-bit processor, but that might mean that there are actually 32 different instructions that you can do on the processor and like 64 different instructions. And moving information from one memory location to another location, that's a really common thing you do on a processor. Cool. In certain circumstances, after the use of certain Intel x86 and 64 architecture instructions, a debug exception pointing to data in a lower ring, for most operating systems, their kernel ring O level, is made available to operating system components running in ring 3. I have no idea what any of that means. The CERT CC team explained in an advisory published yesterday. OS vendors coordinate and release patches at the same time. So operating systems that mishandled this debug exception and had their systems open to attacks include Apple, Microsoft, FreeBSD, Red Hat, Ubuntu, SUSE Linux, and other Linux distros based on the Linux kernel, which is also affected. Oh no! Further, the issue also made it into virtualization software like VMware and Zen because they virtualize like access to processors. Dang. Let's take a quick break. Fixing the bug and having synchronized patches out by yesterday was an industry-wide effort. One that deserves praises compared to the jumbled Meltdown and Spectre patching processes. So you might remember when those happened a few months back. Both of those were bugs in Intel processors, and operating systems had to actually release fixes for it. So that's, for one, that sucks because literally every computer that has an Intel processor was affected by this. But all of the OS vendors released a patch at the same time, so that's a good thing. But just goes to show we are not safe. Like we're so dependent on these things, like our laptops with their processors inside of them, that and there are large vendors like Intel that just run on so many different machines that if they make a mistake, that's huge, right? Because if attackers knew about that mistake before the researchers found it, best believe they were exploiting it and hacking people's. Cool. Let's click this one last link, and then we'll try the NPM audit thing. My students wrote haikus about compilers. The last question of my compilers final was, write a haiku about compilers. 0.5 points if funny, 0.5 points if actually a haiku. Some are not haikus. And these are some of the best ones. Enhance. Okay. Mutability. Makes reasoning harder for me. I need purity. Sounds like a functional programmer. Okay. A control flow graph. Hold on. Other CFG. Context-free grammar. Jumps cost you cycles. Speculation left broken. Sometimes ankles too. Oh, and then this was a reference to the professor being on crutches. Compilers is fun. I do really enjoy it. I may be lying. Cool. I hope that this was for like bonus points on the final, whatever it was. Oh well. Cool. I will link to that as well. Oh no, did I close Chrome? Oh, I accidentally closed Chrome. Come back. Okay, there you are. I do want to end the stream pretty soon, but if you haven't, check out Vue.js News. It's news.vuejs.org. You can see some of the latest things. This is from this week. Cool. Yeah, check that out. You'll see some good stuff. All right, let's read this and then try to use it on one of my existing projects. So last month we announced npm at6, which includes a powerful new tool to protect the safety of your code, npm audit. Together, the new automatic alerts when a user installs code with a known security risk. Excuse me. Audit is a dramatic step to ensure the quality and integrity of the code you use and protect the world's largest community of open source software developers. So there was this project called, I think, NSP, the Node Security Project, and I believe NPM acquired that company. And so essentially what it is it will tell you if any of your packages are known to have a vulnerability in them, and then it will allow you to fix it. So this was in npm at6. Let's go to the Amy is asking, am I getting sick or have allergies? I think it's allergies. I usually take allergy medicine, and I haven't in a while. But let's go into the full stack app I made on Newbie Tuesday the other day. Let's go into the server. Let's see which version of npm I'm running. 5.6. Let's upgrade. npm install-g npm. So you use npm to update to the latest version of npm. Cool. So I'm now on npm version 6. Awesome. And this is just a backend app that uses Express, Cores, Body Parser, Joy, Monk, and Morgan, and then also NodeMon. And if I run npm audit, it will tell me if any of my packages or any of their dependencies have a security vulnerability. Let's do it. npm audit. One vulnerability found. Okay, where's it at? It's a low risk prototype pollution. The package is deep extend. And so the interesting thing about installing things with npm is your dependencies have dependencies, and your dependencies have dependencies. So this is deep down in the chain. And it's curious like how you would actually fix this, because you don't have control over which package RC installs. And that was installed by this package, which is installed by this package, which was installed by this package. So really it's kind of up to this package to fix their dependency on this package. But if we click this link, we should be able to read more about it. Versions of deep extend before 0.5 are vulnerable to prototype pollution. I think that just means like modifying the built-in prototypes. Let's look up prototype pollution. Yeah, and Sneak is another tool for detecting vulnerabilities in your packages. They were like a competitor with Node Security Project. The utilities function allow modifications of the object prototype. If an attacker can control part of the structure passed to this function, they could add or modify an existing property. I guess the risk is, what if you accidentally, well, not accidentally, what if the attacker sends you a library in replacement for the one that you were expecting, and because it modifies the prototype, now some unsuspecting method might do something malicious. And I think prototype pollution just literally means like modifying the prototype of the object. So how to avoid object prototype pollution? Sometimes you just need to extend array objects. Think of the possibilities. Dream of how much more awesome jQuery would have been if it provided all of the array methods in its God object instead of reinventing the wheel. And the idea is like adding functions to built-in objects. And this is actually how like polyfills work. Like array.map, filter, and reduce were introduced in ES5, but older browsers that don't support ES5, they don't have those, but a polyfill will actually just add those methods to the array prototype, so they work. All of this to say that package has a vulnerability that might introduce prototype pollution. Cool. That was my server side. I actually got a notification, I believe, a while back on one of my Vue.js apps that it was vulnerable. So let's do an npm audit on this client at. If I cat my package .json, we can see this just has dependencies on the Vue CLI. That's pretty much it, but then they have nested dependencies. So let's do an npm audit here. No known vulnerabilities found. Very cool. I'm curious though, there was a package, well not a package, a client-side repo that I created a while back that actually did have vulnerabilities. Was it Vue Calculator? Was it Vue Weather? But GitHub has been doing a thing where they actually show if any of your packages in your package.json have a vulnerability, it will show a message up at the top of your repo, which is pretty cool too. Maybe it was intro to Vuex. Or was it Vue to do? Okay, I don't see it anymore, but GitHub does that as well, which is pretty cool. Awesome. What if I'm using a previous version of NPM? NPM audit is available in NPM 5.10. Prior versions will receive vulnerability messages like that. How does this impact the JavaScript ecosystem? In the short term, these new alerts in NPM audit will raise developers' awareness of known security vulnerabilities in their applications. That's good. In the longer term, prominent vulnerability warnings and actionable security alerts will raise the floor for everyone. So now that they're actually saying when someone has a vulnerability, people will start fixing them, and you'll have less things like that in your apps using packages from NPM. Very cool. Okay, that was a simple demo thingy that I did today, but I think it was fun. It's good enough. Let's also link to this in the README, and I will end the stream there. Any comments, thoughts, questions in the chat before I end it? Cool. So I will push these links up to GitHub. You can click them there. Tonight, I am going to be streaming. If you check out my channel, you can add an alert. So at 8:20 p.m. Mountain Time, if you check coding.garden, you can see what time in your local time zone I stream tonight. But tonight, I believe I'm going to do a part 2 of building a Trello clone. So on Monday, I did the first part where I built a Trello clone with Vue, Vuetify, and Feathers.js. I implemented local login. I implemented creating boards, adding lists to boards, and then tonight I'm going to finish out the app. So we can add cards to boards. We can assign multiple people to a board so multiple people can see it and collaborate on it. You can drag cards from one list to another. You can drag lists around. I'm going to try to get all of that done tonight. Tune in tonight, 8:20 p.m. Mountain Time. Thanks everyone for watching. This has been another episode of Morning Tea with CJ. And if you go to github.com/codinggarden, Morning Tea, this is where I'll push up all the links to the things that I talked about today. I'm going to take one last sip of tea before we close out. Thanks to everyone that watched live. Thanks for everyone that sent a message in the chat. I will see you next time.